It's 4 p.m. We've been developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lane.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stores are watching this Thursday, March 6. The Comelec has announced the dominant majority and minority parties for the 2025 midterm polls. The Lakas-CMD party was named dominant majority, while the Nacionalista party was designated the dominant minority party. Under Comelec rules, the dominant party is entitled to one official watcher at each polling precinct and canvassing center nationwide on Election Day.
The country's unemployment rose to 4.3% in January. This translates to 2.16 million jobless Filipinos, up from 1.63 million in December. The PSA says the increase came after seasonal jobs from the Christmas rush started to fade. President Bongbong Marcos is blaming the partial collapse of the Cabagan-Santa Maria Bridge in Isabela to quote-unquote poor design. He said the original budget of 1.8 billion pesos was reduced to nearly 1 billion pesos, which led to cost-cutting measures that failed. The president vowed to identify those responsible for the accident.
We have no choice. We have to go back. So yung nagtitipid tayo, nagtinipid natin sa 1.8 million, useless. Ngayon, babalik na naman tayo, gagastos na naman tayo ng malaki. Papalitan natin yung mga support, parang nagtayo na naman tayo ng bagong tulay. I always have a saying, fix the problem, not the blame. Ayusin muna natin yung problema. Believe me, we will find out who is responsible. Who is responsible is basically who made the design. Because their design is poor.
Overseas, hundreds of U.S. diplomats reportedly have written to Secretary of State Marco Rubio to protest the dismantling of USAID. They warned that the aid cuts weaken the U.S. leadership and national security while creating power vacuums for China and for Russia.
And European leaders are meeting in Brussels to discuss support for Ukraine. That's amid President Trump's decision to halt U.S. intelligence sharing and military aid. Analysts told the New York Times two things. Without American weapons, Kiev's forces could weaken in as little as 4 months, potentially shifting the battlefield. And two, some European leaders are coaching Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to get back into Trump's good graces.
And joining us today, Storycon's resident political pundit, Tito Ronald Llamas.
Good afternoon, Ami.
Well, and from the Philippine Star, Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan.
Parang nakakakuha yung kanya eh.
Nakakasilaw.
Design eh, nakakakuha. Parang tawag yung
Sige,
optical
testing ko
illusion.
nga, hindi ba kayo nasisilaw?
Parang optical illusion eh. Yung kanyang...
Hindi mo nagaganon?
Nagzi-zebra stripes eh.
di ba?
That there was a time when you're not allowed to wear stripes on air, pero ngayon pwede na
Oo nga.
because of new technology.
Yeah, before kasi it was the interlaced eh. Or something like that. Anyway.
Yes.
Okay, what are we talking about? Bridge collapse. Ano ba yan? Poor design daw.
Poor design. Although I also...
Actually, may Japanese proposal kasi dyan. 1.8 billion. Na mahalan sila.
Oo, they asked them to cut it down.
Oo, naging 600 million, no? Later on, naging 1.2 billion, no? May retrofitting pa na 200 plus na doble. Hindi ko alam kung paano na yan na doble. Pero from 1.8, binabasa 600, no? Pero yung proposal ng Japan is 1.8 silang gagawa. Ito yung mangyayari, ganyan. Hindi yan magko-collapse. No? Pero dahil
Is he right in saying that the one that's liable for this is the designer, hindi yung actual contractor na nag-build?
Kahit kasi, hindi, damay-damay na yan. Pero kahit kasi, kahit nireduce yung sabi ni Presidente, 1 billion, dapat i-adjust mo yung i-adjust mo yung itatayong bridge patay dun sa safety protocols ng isang tulay. No? Ibig sabihin, hindi dahilan na dahil bumaba yung budget ay
you just cut corners.
Oo, dahil halimbawa, imagine mo kung maraming mga dumadaan dyan at mag-collapse siya, di ang daming patay.
Ito nga, tatlo lang eh.
Oo. Kaya yun yung dyan, i-adjust mo. Kaya design, contractors, damay-damay sila dyan.
Walang cables eh. He went to inspect
Pero
it this morning.
sino yung designer? Kasi yung contractor may pangalan tayo eh. Yung designer ang wala. Dalawa daw yung designer, di ba? Sinabi ng regional director. May dalawa daw designer. Pero yung contractor, including 2 retrofitting, dalawa yung retrofitting pala niya na in 2023 na nagkakahalaga ng 274 million and in 2024, 115 million. So total for retrofitting, 389 million. Wala pa rin nangyari, bumagsak pa rin
Pero di ba, Ami, ay kahit naman ito yung nagdesenyo, kailangan yung pagiging sturdy, nung
It's only
bridge.
engineering company.
Yung
That's what I'm saying.
Yung contractor ang gagawa
Correct.
nun eh.
That's what I'm saying.
Kung ang tingin ng contractor ay hindi nila magagawa,
Yes.
edi
Oo.
mag-a-adjust sila, di ba? O kaya papaiksiin yung tulay. Yan kasi medyo mahaba eh.
That's my point. See,
Yes.
President Marcos was saying the designer that parang he was pinning the blame on the design. It's a design flaw kasi walang cables daw. But the question here is it just the designers who are liable? I mean, the contractors are local companies, no?
Yes. RD Construction, junior construction.
Tiga
Ewan ko kung ano
Kabanatuan.
ibig sabihin nun.
Tiga Nueva Ecija yata yung
Well,
contractor.
this is a 2014.
Bigaraw
This
yung
started
office
2014 or
nila.
2015.
Tugigaraw.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea? Of course, they're not in DPWH. But have you been in touch with anybody from that era? Because this was during Pinoy's administration, as to how the design was supposed to have gone and what capacity was supposed to be allowed in the initial
Yes,
design.
sana may makausap tayo para malaman natin.
Hindi sinabi ng regional director, hindi ba? Kaya daw nag-double yung budget from the 600 million kasi hinabaan. Di ba yan yung pinagtatawanan mo, Ronald? Na hinabaan kasi nakita na hindi pala mahaba yung
hindi sakop
floodplain.
yung floodplain.
Kailangan dagdagan, no? Kaya siya dinagdagan. Kaya
Yan yung-
nagdoble yung Kaya
Yan
lang
yung-
it's the same contractor.
Yeah, pero for a long time, hindi talaga madaanan yan eh. No? Kaya nga ang tawag nila dyan, the most expensive walkway. Ang dumadaan dyan, naglalakad. Eventually, pinayagan yung mga tricycad. Eventually, pinayagan yung mga tricycle. Eventually, pinayagan yung ilang kotse. Tapos, nung dumaan yung truck, ayun, lumubog. No?
Nalagpak.
Kaya, from the very start,
Sabi ka-
alam nila na, medyo problematic eh. No? Alam nila problematic. Pero, kahit
This
kasi
was,
pag ginawa mo yung design, tapos sasabihin ng contractor, teka, hindi uubra yan. No? Hindi uubra yan. Ibig sabihin, lahat may problema dyan. Tapos yung DPWH, ba't nila inaprubahan yung design? Di ba?
Yun ang isa pa dyan.
Sa dulo kasi
Bakit inaprubahan ng
DPWH mag-approve eh. Ba't nila
Right.
inaprubahan?
The-
Ba't mo sisisihin yung naggumawa ng design? Pwede namang i-reject yun. Di ba, Ami? Pwede namang i-reject yun eh.
But also, the DPWH official we talked to,
has to be approved by DPWH.
yeah, but the DPWH guy we talked to,
is supposed to have structural engineers.
Correct.
Di
Yeah.
ba?
yeah, but the DPWH guy we talked to last time, sabi niya 45
Si engineer.
tons yung allowed capacity. I'm wondering if that was the initial allowed capacity in 2014, 2015, or that was the reinforced capacity already? Kasi nakadalawang reinforcement eh. What's the word for that? Hindi it's not reinforcement eh.
Saka nung
They redesigned it twice.
Yeah. 2020, 23 and 24 nga eh. So they had to...
Na-approve yan 2014, nasimulan yan 2015, no? Nung last year na. Parang kanyan eh, groundbreaking pa lang yan. No?
Oh, yeah.
O groundbreaking pa lang eh. No? So, dapat maraming kwan dyan involved eh. Lalo na ganyang kalaki, ganyang kahaba. No? Ang pinagtatawanan dati yan as a walkway. Dahil ang pwede lang dumaan dyan, medyo natapos na yan earlier eh. Pero dahil nga hindi pa siya sturdy, mga tao lang ang naglalakad. Kaya nga ang joke dyan sa lugar, the most expensive walkway.
Retrofitting is the word. They call it retrofitting. So was a 45-ton limit after the retrofitting, the two-time retrofitting, or was it before the two-time retrofitting? In which case, kasi can the president just blame the design if the design specs only allows for this much?
Yes.
Tsaka bakit ni retrofit? Brand new never used. Bakit ni retrofit?
Oo.
Well, maybe because they had to
hindi
adjust
ba?
the budget, right? As we were just saying, originally 1.8 billion dapat siya na cut down to 600 million, and then that wasn't enough, so nadagdagan to 1.2 thereabout. So in every stage they had to recalculate, 'di ba?
Kaya ang
And
sabi
that's
ng mga
probably why they
Japanese,
retrofitted.
sabi ng mga Japanese, we told you so. Parang ganyan yung kanila.
Alam, maganda balikan natin si engineer eh. I suppose he's been able to dig up already some documents. Maybe
Yeah.
tomorrow, let's try to...
Kaso hugas kamay siya eh. 2 months pa lang ako rito eh.
Yeah, but
Ganun niya.
I'm sure by this time they
Kakaupo lang niya.
started investigating kasi in the end, he is now currently...
Tsaka may nag-resign.
Oo.
May nag-resign. Sino ba yung nag-resign? Yung regional?
Regional yan
Oo,
eh.
may nag-resign na regional eh.
This was counted under the build program pala, no, of the former administration. I think this is
Marami kasi
counted,
doon, marami doon sa nasimulan nung Pinoy
Oo,
government.
kinontinue nila. Yeah.
Pinackage nila as build.
Correct.
Oo.
Yeah.
Actually, more than half ng build.
90%, di ba? 90% daw of the works ginawa ng Duterte administration.
Were started in the
ano.
previous administrations, correct.
Ano, yung previous administration, groundbreaking pa lang yun.
Now I don't know if they want to claim this one. Baka ayun nila.
Hindi, binapalala ka nila si BBM eh.
Ang ganda-ganda ng bridge, ano? Sabi nga ni Ping Lacson, bakit ka gagawa ng bridge kung hindi madaanan ng truck?
Oo nga. Precisely.
Di ba?
Di ba? Kahit
Why
anong
are we
limit
build-
yung gawin mo,
Why are we?
kahit anong gawin mong limit sa tonnage, dapat pwedeng dumaan ng truck. Dahil daanan talaga
Kaya
ng
nga.
truck yung lugar na yan eh.
Kaya nga, probinsya yan eh. Probinsya yan eh.
Tapos
Maraming cargo
yung
truck dyan eh.
cables, the cables hanging there, they look like they were just bolted on eh. Hindi siya talaga... I mean, they look more like decorative cables than anything eh.
Mga pinako, gano'n.
Hindi siya mukhang talagang
Maganda lang tingnan,
nakabaon.
ano?
Hindi, medyo hindi lang maganda yung paliwanag ng engineer na sinisisi yung truck. No?
Sabi niya, 102 tons yung truck.
105 tons. Ano yun? Kwan yun?
Mining
Yeah,
truck,
tons lang.
monster truck.
Tatlong kwan yun. Tatlong tangke yun. Ano yung average sa tangke, mga 30-40 tons eh.
But I mean, at least President Marcos has visited it. Nakita na niya for himself, and he says heads will roll if it's proven that there was corruption involved.
Yeah, dahil
if it's,
DPWH has to approve everything dyan.
I don't know if it's
Yes.
Oh, so...
Lahat ng design.
Di ba ba?
Binayaran nila yun eh. Yung design na yun eh.
Di ba
They
ba?
paid for that. May consultancy yun eh. Design consultancy. May bayad yun. Mahal yung mga yan.
Oh. Halimbawa, si Ed Lingao gumawa ng house show na design. Aaprubahan ko yun. No? Hindi siya yung dapat sisihin.
Oo,
Dapat
may kasalanan.
ako dapat ang sisihin. Ako nag-approve eh. House show nga yung design eh. Di ba?
Pero ang tanong din, kung kaninong last design ang dapat sisihin. Kasi, I suppose, nakatatlong redesign yan eh.
Nakatatlo, yeah.
Kasi nag-retrofit eh.
Yes.
So when the president says poor design, which design is poor? The first, the second, the third, or all? Kasi dapat yung third yung last touch eh. Kasi ikaw dapat yung sumulo ng
Yung
lahat.
final,
Imaginein mo,
You would
Ami.
think so.
2023 and 2024.
Imagine mo,
Ang
Ami,
retrofitting.
kung yung JICA subway tinanggal natin sa kamay ng mga Hapon. No? Pinasa natin.
Buti na lang nga,
Kulang
Japanese
ng
ang
checks.
gumagawa.
Pinasa natin sa iba dahil habol natin mas murang subway.
that's probably gonna, that's gonna be blow out of the budget din kasi delayed na sila because of the right-of-way issues. Pero yung with
Yes,
this,
they have a problem right of way.
Baka yun naman ang gamiting dahilan ng bagong Senate building.
Right of way, walang right of way dyan. Bahayan, floodplain yan.
Walang right of way dyan. Kaso baka yun ang gamitin ng bagong Senate building.
Oh, may right of way para ng Senate building.
Kaya tumataas ang presyo. Dahil nire-retrofit
Right of way.
Baka kasi gumuho, kaya kinuha nila.
Nire-retrofit.
Dahil
Wait,
dahil
they were
obligat.
supposed to move into it this year, di ba?
Tuloy ba yun? Hindi pa tapos
Hindi,
eh.
it's suspended.
Hindi.
Pero dapat this year originally,
Actually,
right?
last year pa dapat
Yeah.
yun.
Walang gumagawa. I pass there every weekend eh.
Last year
Walang
pa
gumagalaw
dapat.
eh.
Oh,
Di ba
pinag-debatehin
sabi
pa
ni
yung...
Chis Escudero, baka daw after 2028 na yun malipatan. Yan ang sabi niya.
Maganda sana binyagan yun for
Oh,
the
doon.
investment, di ba?
Meron bang heads will roll doon? Meron bang heads will roll doon sa Senate building?
Sabi niya, because they're still arguing about the total cost, di ba?
Oo nga. Kaninong heads?
Oo
Nag-heads
nga, yan.
na
Pati yan
approve.
kaninong head yan? Dyan sa bridge na yan. remember kung 90% niyan construction under the Duterte administration, sino yung DPWH nun? Sige nga.
Sino ba siya? Sino ba siya? Nagsisimula pa sa
Kalyado
pangalang...
yun, kalyado
nagsisimula ba siya sa Eme?
Asan ba siya ngayon?
Ayoko na, I don't wanna say anything. But
Kaya nga
But
Oh, hindi
somebody
ba?
did say that there's nothing wrong with political dynasties daw because they're elected by.
Oh, but biglang
It's
napunta
the
doon.
people
Is it
who
the same,
elected.
ano? Is it the same
Yung ba yung
family?
nanay? Yung ba yung nanay?
Hindi ko alam, basta there was a quote recently
Parang yun yung nanay.
of someone saying na
DPWH.
there's nothing wrong with political dynasties
wala
because
naman
they're
daw mali.
elected by the.
Kung magaling naman yung pamilya.
Matindi,
Kung magaling naman daw yung pamilya, maglingkod eh. Oh.
We have to segue na, Ami, because we're talking about other.
Matutuwa tayo dito.
May politics din. We're talking about yung dominant, majority, and minority parties.
Ba't natawa ka?
Huli na lang, yung meme na lang. Yung meme dun sa bridge, maganda. Made of steel. S-T-E-A-L.
Still.
Parang
Ami, naughty ka.
Parang nagpapatawa si Ami. Parang nagpapatawa.
Bakit funny naman It's a cute part. Ano ba?
It's a tita joke.
Hindi, meme yun, meme. Hindi original yun. Nakita ko lang.
May attribution mo pala siya. Okay. So yung sisi sa iba.
Nakita ko lang yun. Nakita ko lang.
Anyway, as I was saying kanina, we were talking about yung Senate resolution, the Comelec
Comelec.
resolution identifying the dominant majority and the dominant
Yes.
minority party.
Nalink kagad ni Reg doon sa bridge at saka doon sa dynasty. Nalink kagad eh.
Everything is connected. Everything is connected.
At paano naging minority party yung kasama sa administration slate?
I don't know.
Paliwanag mo nga, Ami.
But
Yung minority party ay kasama sa administration slate. Ayun o, yun.
Yes,
Nationalist.
Ay,
nationalist.
dito yung kay ano.
Ayan.
Okay. Ang
Parang
dominant majority
yung
party
kay ano,
ay
kay Comelec
Lakas-CMD.
chairman.
Oo. Tapos ang minority party ay nationalista,
Nationalista.
na kaalyado ng
Tatakbo sa ilalim ng nacionalista ay si Amy Marcos at si Camille Villar,
Camille
di ba?
Villar,
NP.
Nationalista.
The Villars are in charge of the
yeah,
NP.
kapatid nung
So they're in the
Nationalista
slate
yun.
of the
Kapatid.
bagong Pilipinas Alliance.
Alyansa para sa bagong Pilipinas.
Oh. So there you go. So
Saka kailangan tanungin kung paano piliin kasi multi-party system tayo eh. Wala na nga, hindi na nga malaman what party stand for. Ano kayang dinidetermine yan? Siguro tatanungin
Actually,
natin
it's a complex
Chairman
formula.
Garcia, no?
There are
Hindi
6
complex.
criteria.
Yeah. It's a lengthy
Yeah, pero
counting.
ang medyo basic na tanong, paano naging minority yung miyembro
Yan
o
na nga.
kaalyado ng Lakas-NUCD? Sa admin slate. Usually kasi pag minority, yan yung opposition, di ba, Ami?
Opposition yan. Kaya medyo magulo na nga ngayon, paano yan, pati sila Duterte camp new opposition na sila. Yan
Alam
ang
mo,
problema nga dito sa
ang
sistema natin
nagpagulo
ngayon,
dyan
hindi
is
na
RA
malaman
7166, yung the law synchronizing the elections passed in, I think, 1991 ba to? Ginulo niya yung number 1, yung definition ng kailan nagsisimula ang kampanya, kaya ngayon pwede ng premature campaigning. At pangalawa, it put in new standards and categories on how you compute kung sino ang dominant minority.
Pero ang maganda kasi dyan...
Sige nga, paano daw?
Pero ang maganda kasi sa ganyang gulo, nagkakaroon ng trabaho yung mga political pundit.
Hindi ka naman sa doon eh.
Kaya nga.
Nagkakaroon kami ng pagkakataon para i-deconstruct,
Di ba you complain every day?
i-analyze, no?
Araw-araw ka nagreklamo, you're not paid?
Diyan nagkakaroon ng
Pero ano
value.
nga yung rule?
Okay.
Ed, ano yung rule? How do you determine?
Si Reg listed it down eh. I'll have to
No,
pull it in
so
from
we're
the
talking about
resolution.
dominant majority parties. Comelec accredited 9 major political parties
Based on 6 criteria.
based on 6 criteria.
Tapos i-weight nila yan, weighted average.
So yung 11, so we've got 9 major political parties, okay? I'll rattle them off. Akbayan, Action Democratico, Liberal Party, Nationalist People's Coalition, National Unity Party, PDP Laban, Partido Demokratiko Reforma, Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, PFP, United Nationalist Alliance. Yan yung 9 major political parties that qualified for accreditation. And then from there, they chose the dominant majority party, which is Lakas-CMD nga. And then yung dominant minority party, which is Nacionalista. 6 criteria po.
Kumbaga, let's go to them na siguro. The criteria, history, number of incumbents, chapters nationwide, candidates who win, and women representation. So you're assigned a certain number of points per party on how you rank among these categories. And yung number 1 will be the dominant majority. Number 2 will be the dominant minority party. So ang number 1, of course, is Lakas-NUCD. And number 2 is NP.
Pero Ed, meron ba silang definition? Ano yung ibig sabihin ng minority at saka majority party?
Ang may definition yan actually is in the Omnibus Election Code. Unfortunately, it's in the transitory provision of the Omnibus Election Code. It was only applicable
Anong ibig sabihin ng transitory para sa ating...
Basahin mo na yung,
Yeah.
yung Omnibus Election Code para maganda kasi itong It's transitory because this was in 1985. It says in Section 274 of the BP 881, for purposes of the next elections in 1986 and the next presidential elections in 1987 or earlier, the dominant opposition party shall be the party, group, or org or coalition opposed to the majority party, which has the capability to wage
Malinaw yun.
a
Keyword is opposed.
There you
Malinaw yun, di ba?
There you go.
So yung nationalista ba ay opposed?
Ayun nga. But the problem kasi is that this is BP 881 of 1985 and it's only the transitory provision applying to the next presidential election of 1987.
Pero na-supersede na ba yan ng bagong...
By the 1991
anong nakasulat?
synchronized election sa law, it doesn't define anymore per se yung yung trabaho ng dominant majority versus dominant minority. It just specifies how it's selected. And that's where you have the criteria.
So natanggal yung opposed.
Wala yung opposed. Kaya kita mo
Hindi. Ang problema kasi dyan, Ed, noong 1985, we had a two-party system.
two-party system.
Nagkaroon tayo ng constitution, bigla naging multi-party. Yan ang problema. Na-abolish si two-party system sa constitution, hindi nag-adjust yung election code natin. Kaya ganyan kagulo yung selection na yan ngayon.
Pero parang malinaw naman kung ano ang ibig sabihin ng majority at saka minority.
And
The idea behind it is dapat checks and balances,
Yeah, the purpose
right?
of it all.
One has to check the other.
Yes.
Pero in this
Parang
case,
fourth with yan eh.
Kaya umakyat sa Supreme Court yung fourth tweet eh. Baka ito, kailangan paakyatin din doon.
But in this case, hindi lang sila not opposed to each other, but Lakas and Nacionalista candidates
Are allied.
formed an alliance with PFP to make up alyansa, right?
the administration state.
Yes.
So they belong together forever.
As majority.
Hindi naman forever. Nothing's forever in
It's a song.
politics.
No, but I pointed out kasi, ano ba ang advantage mo?
Ay nga sa pag-ibig.
Oo nga.
Ano advantage ng ikaw ay dominant majority and dominant minority?
I'm not too sure, pero
These two.
alam ko yung may access yan sa mainframe.
Okay.
Yeah,
may-
yung watchers mo.
Yan. It's in the synchronization law. Number 1, dominant minority, dominant majority. These two alone will get direct access from will receive directly the results from the precincts to their private servers.
Kaya nga,
So rekta yan.
Yes.
kaya nga
Diretso,
malinaw yung
diretso.
essence eh. They are supposed to check each other. Eh paano i-check each other eh magkasama sila?
They also get one official watcher
Poll watcher.
in every polling station and canvassing center nationwide. So sila yung mabibigyan ng priority on election day to have a bantay in the official polling stations.
Taong bahay doon sa presinto kasi doon malamang magkakaroon ng hocus-pocus dahil because it's electronic now. So kung may dayan, malamang doon
I don't think Comelec Chair George Garcia is gonna appreciate you saying hocus pocus.
It's
Sabi niya,
magic.
Baka long overdue na i-guess natin uli si Chairman Garcia.
we're supposed to.
Okay.
I think they're trying to get in touch with him. Alam mo kasing,
Nag-confirm na siya eh, but I don't know
Dahil
what
almost
happened.
every week guess natin siya.
We're trying right now.
Ha?
Dahil di ba almost every week guess natin siya.
Oo.
Kaya
Pa hindi.
medyo June eh.
We were trying already.
We're trying right now.
So, that's number 1. I think mukhang under the law, mukhang lulusot ito because the synchronized election law provides for that formula. Unfortunately, parang it
Unless
defeats
may
the purpose.
magprotesta, Ed.
Unless somebody
we can
contests
expect
that.
siguro protesta from PDP Laban, for example.
Unless somebody contests it in Supreme
baka
Court.
magprotesta yan eh.
Oo. But yun nga, it has to be questioned in court muna because it's already a law eh. This is 1991, itong criteria na to.
Yung LP kaya,
Wala eh. Ang baba.
Protesta.
ang lit
Minority
ng
talaga
points
yun.
ng LP.
And then the other thing is, explain to
Saka
us,
hindi na sila opposition. Tawag nila independent.
explain to us paano naging dominant majority party ang Akbayan.
Hindi naman siya dominant majority, Atika. Parang
They are.
yung basa ko.
Hindi kami dominant majority.
Sorry, not dominant majority, but one of the national accredited parties.
Ayun.
Yes.
Dati
Iba yun.
party list lang
Well,
kayo.
partly dahil
And then how did you become a
Well,
national?
partly may nationwide character. Kalawa, maganda yung representation ng women sa akbayan. No? At ikatlo ay merong mga candidates, local at saka national. National, si Senator Risa. Sa
But
local,
it's just siya lang. It's only her.
yeah, sa national.
It doesn't matter to them na iisa lang yung national candidate.
Yung Aksyon Demokratiko, wala ni isa eh. Yung iba dyan, wala ni isa eh. No? Kaya yun, tapos local candidates. No? Meron ka, whether manalo o matalo, at least may pinatakbo ka. No?
At least you have a slate
Oo.
sa local and national.
So lahat yan, yung 6 criteria na yan, i-weigh nila yan, tapos i-crunch nila para magkaroon ka ng ranking. Pero kung pumasa ka dyan sa 6, basically, ay papasok ka rito. Pero mahalaga rin kasi, sino nag-apply? No? Doon sa mga nag-apply, yan ang pumasa.
11 applied.
Yung kay
Sabi
Eli
ng
Pamato,
Comelec.
di ba nag-apply kay Eli Pamato?
Lagi nag-apply yun. Saka may presidential candidate.
Oo, si Eli Pamato. Eh, teka, yumaon na siya.
Hindi, pero namimiss ko yung nagtapon siya ng spike sa highway.
Hindi, na-miss ko yung nagpapaputok siya ng
Ng mga
45.
45. Oo.
So, my other question here is, ano nangyari sa HNP? They're not even on the list. They didn't apply.
Local party kasi yung Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
It's not a national party.
But,
Yeah, it's a local.
Nakipag-partner sila sa Lakas. Nakipag-coalition sila.
yeah.
Kaya,
And that clearly
Pero
has
nag-break up
broken
na yun eh.
down. Wala na yon. So, hindi na sila counted as a national
Yes.
party.
Yes.
Ang daming changes.
Kaya kailangan natin kailangan ayusin yung party system natin eh. Lalong gumulo nung nagka-party list, lalong nagkagulo ngayon yung party list nagiging major political party na medyo magulo, no?
Nasa constitution yan eh. Marginalized parties magkaroon ng representation sa 20% ng ating kongreso. Yun yung rule dyan. Pero,
Yan yung original. Kaso at a certain point,
puro mayayaman na ngayon.
You remember in
Kaya sabi na
2019,
Supreme Court,
the head of the party list block in Congress was the richest guy in Congress. Si Congressman Mikey
Kaya nga.
Romero.
Hindi, yun ang sinasabi nila.
Yeah.
Kasi may legislation na which allowed it.
Because of
Kaya
the
yun din ang
Supreme Court.
sinasabi ng Supreme Court, huwag nyo kami sisihin dahil yun ang pinasa ng batas, in-interpret lang namin.
Yeah, actually it's also true.
Kaya kung gusto nyo ng pagbabago, you need legislation. Sabi ni Comelec, Chairman Garcia, matagal na sila nagpo-propose ng Comelec reforms, electoral reforms, wala nangyayari, inuupuan lang ng inuupuan ng Kongreso.
Pero hindi magandang excuse
Kaya
yun eh.
here we are.
Dahil malinaw naman sa constitution, marginalized eh. No? Yung batas ay iba.
Underrepresented, marginalized sectors.
So, dapat balikan mo hindi lamang yung batas, kundi yung original fundamental law, which is the Constitution.
In the Constitution kasi, it only specifies marginalized by appointment for the first 2 terms succeeding the...
Hindi. Sa batas yun. For the first 3 terms. Hindi 2. For the 3,
but only for those terms after the ratification.
Yun yung batas. Yung Constitution.
No, in the Constitution. In fact, I remember there was a discussion or debate within the CONCON of 1987 as to whether or not they should specify or require a quota for the marginalized sector in Congress. That was deliberated on, I think, and proposed by Bernas. Unfortunately, hindi siya napasa.
Naaprubahan.
Hindi naaprubahan.
Actually, tayo yung pinaka-weird na party list system sa buong mundo. Dahil sa buong mundo,
Magulo talaga eh.
ang ibig sabihin kasi ng party list, proportional representation.
Political,
proportional.
The idea behind it is sound.
Yes.
We agree.
Kaya nga ideological parties ang Europe eh.
Oo.
They elect parties with clear visions, principles, at saka platforms. Sa atin, walang ganun eh. Kaya
Dito
yun yung,
magulo eh.
Oo,
Magulo yung
tapos,
pagkaka-conceptualize natin eh.
tapos sa
Ng
kanila,
party list.
meron silang minimum threshold. Pag hindi nakaabot sa minimum threshold na yan,
Yes.
hindi ka papasok. Ang sa atin, may maximum threshold. Hanggang 3 lang ang pwede sa party list. Sa ibang bansa, sa Europe, walang limit. Depende sa dami ng boto na nakuha mo, then yun yung magiging representation mo. Sa atin, baliktad yung threshold.
So now lahat humahabol dun sa 3.
Oo.
Pero how do you
Ngayon,
expect...
kailangan baguhin yung kailangan baguhin yung batas sa party list. Kaya lang, sino ang magpapalit ng batas? You already have how many? Ilan na member ng party list sa Congress?
Pero, how will you
Palaki.
expect Congress to amend that law
Exactly.
when if you look at the list of party list parties that have been approved, a lot of them are based around the political clans which
Yes.
also have seats in Congress.
Yan
In other
naman.
words,
Or-
it's not a way for the political
That's
clans
right.
to get an additional seat.
Or contractors.
Or contract.
So we come back to the debate over political dynasties, but sorry, we have to cut to a break. I'm being told off now. You're watching Storycon on One News. We just need to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We've got developing news and the stories behind headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Regina Lay, still with us, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and Ronald Llamas, our political pundit.
Let's bring in our guest for today, Comelec Chairman George Garcia. Sir, magandang hapon and welcome back to Storycon.
Sir
Hi,
Ed.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Hapon, Chairman. Long time no see.
Gandang hapon po.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, we want to talk about yung the Comelec resolution identifying yung dominant majority party and the dominant minority party, among other things, of course. Excuse me. Of course, the majority party is Lakas-CMD. The minority party happens to be Nationalista Party. Of course, a lot of people are asking, how can it be that you have the majority and the minority party belonging to the same alliance or the same slate?
Actually po, matagal na pong naging issue yan several elections ago kung bakit, in fact po, ang sinasabi ng iba, dapat talaga yung genuine opposition ang minority party. Kinwestiyon na rin po yan sa Korte Suprema at consistent po ang sinasabi rin ng Korte Suprema kahit po yung ating patakaran tungkol sa pag-determine kung sino majority at minority na kung sino ang number 2 sa ranking, siya po ang magiging dominant minority party. At sana nga po kung magkakaroon ng legislation na maiko-correct yan at sasabihin na dapat ang dominant minority party ay yung galing sa isang genuine opposition halimbawa, then yun po ang masusunod po. Pero sa kasalukuyan, dahil po sa umiira na patakaran at saka sa SC decision, yan po ang paraan ng pag-determine natin ng dominant minority party.
Chair, anong patakaran yon? Ano yung term of reference ng ganyang klaseng definition? Dahil very simple naman eh. Minority, majority, nung 85-86, malinaw yung definition yan. Yung minority ay in opposition to the majority. Parang,
Tama po.
hindi naman kinakailangan
Tama po
ng
kayo.
mahabang kwendel, paliwalagan, di ba? So,
Tama po kayo, Sir Ronald. Kaya na po nagkaroon ng decision sa ng Supreme Court at pasensya na kung hindi ko agad babanggit yung eksaktong cases. Cases na po yan na talagang dinala po sa Supreme Court yung issue na dapat ang pagpili ng dominant minority ay hindi nakabase sa kung sino ang number 2. Yun po ay lagi po na-affirm ang nagiging ruling ng Comelec sapagkat hindi naman pumalaman din ma-determine kung sino ang paraan ng pag-determine yung tinatawag na genuine o yung tunay na oposisyon. Kaya po ang basihan lang ng Korte Suprema kung sino ang number 2 doon sa ranking na after po ma-ranking sila base sa mga criteria na nilalabas po ng Commission on Elections.
Sir, can you maybe backtrack and explain how you guys ranked the parties? Kasi 11 po yung nag-apply, no? 11 filed their petitions for accreditation. Could you walk us through, for those who don't know, how you ended up ranking these parties?
May mga criteria po katulad halimbawa ng history ng mismong partido, gano'n na sila katagal at pagka yung mas matagal, pinakamatagal 10 points, naka-point system po yan. Pagkatapos yung pong bilang ng kanilang mga incumbent na opisyal sa pamahalaan na elective, magmula sa pinakamataas na presidente hanggang sa pinakamababa, may point system din po yun. At pagkatapos yung pong ilan ang tumatakbo sa kanila ngayon sa kasalukuyan sa lahat ng pwesto na available for this election. At pang-apat po kung ilan ang pinapatakbo nila na kababaihan doon sa kanilang slate sa iba't ibang posisyon magmula sa national at local, may point system din po yan at meron pang isa pa na criteria pinagbabase, may point system po. And then after po magbigyan ng percentage, corresponding percentage, yung kanila pong presence o kanila pong bilang ng mga nakaupo sa kasalukuyan, diyan po magkakaroon ng suma total upang mag-arrive doon sa ranking na tinatawag.
Linawin ko
Chairman,
lang.
you're pointing to the Supreme Court sa legislation for this itong resulta na to. I understand ilang beses na nagpadala ang Commission on Election sa Congress ng mga proposal, di ba, for electoral reforms. Kamusta na po yung kasama ba to sa etong ganitong issue dahil question na to several times sa inyo eh. Kasama ba dun sa mga proposal niyong reforms etong para maremedyohan tong ganitong sitwasyon?
Opo, Ma'am Ami, kasama rin po yan sapagkat alam niyo po naka-include kasi yung minority party determination sa 1985 election code natin.
Yes, sir.
Yun nga po, at that time, manual election tayo. Talagang napaka-importante yan. Lalabanan yung dominant majority minority. Siguro maliban doon sa issue ng pride, nung po kasing manual election, tayo po ay may kopya ng mga election returns. At kung natatandaan po natin, 7 ang kopya ng election returns at sa 7 pong yon, ang pang-5 kopya ay binibigay sa dominant majority party at yung pang-6 na kopya ng bawat presinto ay binibigay sa dominant minority party. Yan po tayo ay naka-carbonless paper na pag sinulat mo sa original sa harap, bumabakat siya hanggang sa
Yes, sir.
likod. Siyempre, pag number 5 ka, medyo malinaw-linaw pa. Pag number 6, medyo malabo na ng konti. Samantalang yung iba pong hindi pa majority or minority, sila po ay hindi entitled sa kopya ng election returns. At siyempre, yung pong presensya, mamami ng watcher sa loob ng presinto. Sa sobrang liit po ng presinto, ang nakakapasok lang po dyan ay ang watcher ng dominant majority, dominant minority party, may preference po sila. Kasama pa po ang Citizens Arm. Sa canvassing sa bayan, sa City Hall, pati ay nakakapasok din ay ang dominant majority, dominant minority kung may limited space. Ngayon po may dagdag ngayon, wala pong may ER po tayo. Kaya lang kahit po yung 10 major political parties ay entitled na rin ng kopya ng election returns sapagkat 30 kopya po lahat ng election returns ang ipiprint ng makina. Kaya lang mauuna muna yung dominant majority at minority do sa first siyam na kopya ng ER bago siya mag-transmit ng result. Ang pinaka-importante I think po ngayon sa dominant majority at saka dominant minority na wala sa batas ay yung pong presensya at pagkakaroon ng server. May sarili na po silang server ngayon na kung saan mula sa presinto, ito po ay maipapadala na sa PBBM, sa NAMFREL, sa majority party, sa minority party, may sarili silang result mula sa presinto sa buong bansa.
Yun yung pinakamahalaga rito, Chairman, dahil ang purpose sana ng minority is to check the majority. How can they check each other na sila lang ang may absolute na hawak ng server na pareho silang magkaalyado? Yun yung fundamental na flaw dito sa ganitong klaseng sistema.
Tama po kayo, Sir Ronald. Ako po ay nag-a-agree dyan. At ako po ay merong suggestion naman doon sa mga hindi nakabilang o hindi po napiling dominant majority or dominant minority base sa criteria po na naka-establish po natin. Alam niyo po, ang PPCRB at NAMFREL ay may sarili pong servers at sila po very much willing to enter into any MOA with anybody para po magkaroon din ng access sa kanila pong server. Ibig sabihin po, sure naman na dapat talaga kung ano yung naipapadalang result sa isang server, dapat pare-parehas yan sa lahat po ng servers, hindi dapat magkakaiba. So kung halimbawa yung majority party o yung napiling minority party ay hindi makapag-share o ayaw mag-share, huwag pong mag-alala, may iba pa pong servers. Ang media may sarili pong server. Halimbawa, ang Philippine Star o ang TV5, siguradong meron po silang representante doon sa mga servers natin na yan. Kasama na rin po ang DICT sapagkat meron po silang tinatawag na mirrors server na naka-mirror sa Comelec po sila.
Sir, earlier you made reference to the Omnibus Election Code, BP 881. Pero yung Omnibus Election Code nga, mas klaro pa nga eh. It calls it the dominant opposition party and it's defined as the group, organization, or coalition opposed to the majority party. Unfortunately, it's in a transition transitory provision. So it only applied to the succeeding presidential election. So, sir, what's the solution here, sir? Talagang you need to have a revision, an amendment of the 1991 synchronization law?
Legislation, Sir Ed. Alam niyo po, kahit po hindi na yung kabuuan ng Republic Act 7166 na binasa niyo po, kahit lang po yung provision lang na yan on determination of who should be really determined as the dominant majority party, and how do we determine really the dominant minority party a departure sa present na meron tayo. Kung magkakaroon po ng legislation, the Comelec will surely and definitely follow. If indeed the purpose is whoever is opposing the majority party and we should be considered as the opposition, then so be it. The Comelec will be supportive of any initiative.
Dahil kung medyo logical yung ating Kongreso, madaling gawin yan eh. Ang problema kung yung tanong nga kung logical.
Well, it's okay. You don't have to answer that,
Pwede
Chair.
nyo itulak, di ba? Pwede nyo itulak, Chairman. Are you planning to? Kasi dati nag-initiate na kayo eh. Wala nga lang nangyari.
Yung
Alam ko niyo bang ulitin?
150 pages namin na draft ng revision, revised omnibus
Yes.
code. Pag pumasok po ang 20th Congress, muli po namin pong ipopropose po ito. Baka sakaling magpusad po ito, sakali maipasa na natin yung bagong election code na unahan pa po kami ng Bangsamoro election code.
Oo nga eh.
Tama.
Sir, we've got about 5 minutes left. If I could just steer the conversation to another issue, yung AKAP guidelines,
ayuda.
the distribution of AKAP, kakalabas nilang po ng guidelines. It basically prohibits presence of any politicians, pati yung any display banners, or any kind of materials linking the politicians to the ayuda. Kailan po magsa-start? And how are you planning to enforce it?
Ma'am Regina, we received, indeed, tama po kayo, we received already the guidelines as submitted by DSWD. Sila po kasi yan sila nagpapatupad yan. Kami po hinihingan lang nila ng exemption. Ngayon po pinag-aaralan namin yung guidelines as to whether nag-comply yan sa ating mga condition. Like for example, talaga bang hindi maaabuso yan ng mga politiko? Number 2, talaga bang yung listahan hindi galing sa politiko o yung mga kandidato? Talaga bang hindi matatanggal yung pangalan ng isang beneficiary dyan dahil lang sa hindi siya supporter ng isang politiko o kandidato? Hindi dapat ito inaabuso dahil hindi naman pera nila yan. So, gusto naming alamin kung eksakto po yung gusto naming ma-envision na maayos na guidelines sapagkat hindi pa po namin ina-actionan yung 12.6 billion na request for exemption na pangalawang batch ng AKAP. Yung na-approve lang po namin ay yung 882 million na meron pong conditional approval subject sa submission ng guidelines. So, asahan nyo po, before mga early part ng next week, we're going to act on the second request as to whether makukontento po kami sa guidelines na sinabit sa amin ng DSWD.
Sir, tama ba intindi ko? Pati yung pamimili o yung pagpili ng recipients, kung may kinalaman doon yung mga politiko, yun sisilipin ninyo? And how do you intend to do? I mean, sorry, we haven't seen the guidelines per se, submitted by DSWD. Was it addressed there in the guidelines? Was it even included in the guidelines?
Initial review ko po, assessment, mukhang na-address naman po. Tama po kayo. Na-address po yun. Sapagkat ang katanungan doon, sino ba talaga ang class ng mga mamayang Pilipino ang bibigyan? Ang sabi po, yung mga low-income earners. So yung mga bababa sa minimum wage na earners. So may mga listahan po sila doon, may mga classification na pwede magpagawa ng listahan. Pero ang tanong pa rin, paano at saan manggagaling yung listahan. So gusto ko po makita yon pagka nag-zero in akong mabuti doon sa guidelines po na sinabit nila.
Well, in relation dyan, Chair, papasok na naman ako sa usapin ng logic. No? Dahil ang department kasi, ang AKAP kasi is para doon sa mga minimum wage earners. Yun yung target constituency niyan. Ang may hawak ng listahan ng minimum wage earners ay yung DOLE, not the DSWD. So may hirapan talaga yung DSWD at papasok talaga doon yung possibility na magsasubmit ay mga politiko dahil nga wala naman silang listahan. Yung DOLE may listahan at mahirap gamitin ng politiko dahil ang listahan talaga minimum wage earners. So hindi ko makita yung, okay lang sa akin yung AX, okay lang yung na DSWD yan. Pero yung AKAP na ang target ay minimum wage earners, yung may hawak na listahan ng minimum wage earners ay DOLE, not the DSWD. Of course, hindi nyo naman mandate yan. Ilang nga nakikita ko an additional illogical framework dito sa AKAP na ito.
Although, Sir Ronald, yung pong guidelines ay isang parang isang tatlong ahensya ng pamahalaan ang nag-draft nito at yung po ay DSWD, ang DOLE kasama po ang NEDA. And so, gusto ko pong alamin, tama yung sinasabi nyo, kukunin ba ng DSWD ang listahan mula po sa Department of
DOLE.
Labor and Employment Nung nag-hearing po kami sa Senado, may magandang naitanong doon. Ang naging katanungan doon, hindi ba parang tinutulungan natin, parang pinapayagan natin yung mga hindi nagbabayad ng minimum wage sa ating mga kababayan dahil tinutulungan pa natin yung mga kababayan natin na hindi nakakasweldo ng tama, samantalang ang dapat parusahan yung employer. So may mga ganun pong lumabas at yung po yung gusto ko rin makita doon sa guidance kung paano sasagutin yung mga ganyang klaseng katanungan.
Okay.
Mga gaano katagal po kaya nyo yan pag-aaralan? Malapit na po eleksyon eh.
Hanggang next week po, Ma'am Ami, ang prohibition po sa social services ay papasok pa lamang sa March 8. March 28. So
Yes.
dapat bago mag-March 28, may malinaw na direction mula sa Comelec kung papayagan namin yung exemption o hindi po.
Okay, and then very quickly, Chair, tama po ba, did I understand correctly, DSWD is asking for another 12 billion pesos in exemption for AKAP funds
Yes po.
distribution?
Yes po, Ma'am.
Ano po yung rationale there?
Because po malaki po yata yung budget para sa AKAP and therefore naka-per quarter po yung pag-release po niyan, nakadepende sa kanila. So, yung una kasi pina-approve, Ma'am Regina, sa amin, 882 million
Correct.
lang po eh. Pero yung pangalawang batch na pong ito ay 12.6 billion. So, mukhang ang kabuuan po yata ng AKAP na nakalagay sa GAA, kung di tayo nagkakamali, 26 billion po yata.
Doesn't that defeat the rules against the distribution of AKAP aids without the politicians interfering? 12 billion is a huge sum, no?
Yes, so basta dapat po,
Hindi ba pwede delay na lang yan?
After the
Sandali na lang,
elections.
election na eh.
Yeah.
Sandali na lang, election na.
alam ko, hindi talaga para sa amin po kasi yung mga bagay na ganyan because it pertains to the executive department. Ang sa amin lang, basta siguraduhin lang namin na hindi siya mapupolitika. At responsible sa amin ang ahensya dahil kapag hindi po nasunod yung guidelines o yung kondisyon namin, sila po mapapailan ng kaso dito sa amin. Saka siyempre po, sa mga susunod, ba't pa kami mag-i-issue na exemption kung malalabag din lang pala at hindi masusunod?
Correct.
Saka at this point, paliwanag siguro natin na yung role ng Comelec is ministerial. Halimbawa, dito sa listahan ng dominant at saka minority, hindi nila decision yan. Baka kasi, Chair, masisi kayo. No? Linawin natin na ini-implement nyo kung ano yung batas, kung ano yung napagdesisyonan. No?
Supreme Court ruling.
Baka masisi kayo ng masisi na hindi naman kayo illogical. No? Baka sabihin na illogical kayo, di ba?
Nasa Kongreso ang power.
Makikitingin din po sa mga titingin po. Makikitingin niyo po kung tama yung computation namin. Alam niyo naman po na kaya po tayo naglo. Medyo mahirap din po yung mathematics at saka yung statistics. Medyo tingnan niyo po kung tama yung aming point system doon at saka yung averaging namin para malaman namin kung talagang tama yung ranking.
Okay. We're gonna have to leave
Okay.
that there. Thank you so much for joining Storycon. Comelec Chairman George Garcia, thanks for your time.
Maraming salamat.
Thanks, sir.
Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Salamat po.
That's all we have for today. Thanks for joining Storycon today. Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, and of course, Ronald Llamas, our resident political pundit. Join us again tomorrow, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Logical pandit.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.